The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 800 years. They had conquered 2,000 star systems. 6 different species served under their flag, and not one of them had joined by choice. They took what they wanted, and they had never failed. When their scout ships found Earth, they saw nothing special. A small blue planet orbiting an average star. The creatures living there called themselves humans. They had only recently learned to travel between stars. Their technology was primitive. Their military was laughable. They had crushed species 10 times more advanced. This would be easy. Ambassador waited aboard the orbital station called Horizon's Edge. He was 63 years old, with gray hair and a calm face that rarely showed emotion. He had spent his entire adult life in diplomacy. He had talked angry nations out of wars. He had negotiated peace treaties that everyone said were impossible. He believed that any problem could be solved with patience and careful words. Standing beside him was Captain Park. She commanded the defense ship Aegis, the pride of Earth's small fleet. She was 41, with short black hair and sharp eyes that noticed everything. Unlike the ambassador, she did not believe in peaceful solutions. She believed in being ready for violence. The shuttle docked with the station. The airlock opened, and the alien delegation stepped through. Had seen pictures of but pictures did not capture how they made humans feel. They stood 3 meters tall. Their skin was covered in scales that shifted colors like oil on water. They had 4 arms and faces that held no expression humans could read. They moved with the confidence of creatures who had never been challenged. The lead spoke, and a small device on its chest translated the words into Korean. "We are the Empire. We have claimed this region of space. Your species will now become part of our civilization." Nodded politely. "We are honored by your visit. Perhaps we could discuss the terms of cooperation." They made a sound that might have been laughter. "There is no discussion. These are your terms. You will surrender all military vessels. You will dismantle all weapons. Your population will be assigned to labor duties across our territory. In exchange, we will not destroy your planet." Captain Park felt her hands tighten into fists. She forced herself to stay calm. His expression did not change. He had dealt with impossible demands before. He asked questions. What exactly did labor duties mean? Would families be kept together? Would humans have any rights within the Empire? The answers were not good. Humans would be slaves. They would work in mines and factories on distant worlds. They would have no rights. They would serve until they died. The ambassador listened to everything. He asked them to wait while he consulted with Earth. The aliens agreed, seeming almost bored. They had done this hundreds of times. The answer was always the same. Every species eventually surrendered. Walked to a private room and opened a quantum communication link to the United Earth Council. The leaders of every nation were waiting. He told them what they demanded. The discussion lasted 2 hours. Some leaders wanted to fight. Others said fighting was suicide. A few suggested trying to negotiate better terms. In the end, they voted. The result was not even close. Returned to the meeting room. The representative stood waiting, already looking past the old diplomat toward whatever task came next. "We have considered your offer," said. His voice was steady and quiet. "We must respectfully decline." The translator device flickered. The scales shifted to a darker color. "Repeat your statement," it said. "We decline. Earth will not surrender. We will not give you our ships. We will not become your slaves. We choose to remain free." For a long moment, nobody moved. Captain Park watched the aliens carefully, her hand moving slightly closer to the weapon at her belt. The representative leaned forward. It was so tall that it had to bend down to look the human ambassador in the eyes. "You do not understand," it said. "No species refuses. You have no choice. Your fleet is small. Your weapons are weak. We will destroy you." Met the alien's gaze without flinching. "You are correct that our fleet is small. You are correct that your weapons are stronger, but you are wrong about one thing. We always have a choice, and we choose to fight." They made that strange laughing sound again. "Then you choose extinction." The delegation left without another word. Their shuttle detached from the station and flew back toward the massive warship waiting in the distance. Captain Park watched them go. "They will come back with their full fleet." "Yes," agreed, "they will. We cannot win against them, you know that." The old ambassador was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled just slightly. "I know what the numbers say, but I have learned something in my years of diplomacy. Numbers do not account for everything. They do not account for courage. They do not account for stubbornness. And they do not account for a species that would rather die than live on its knees." 3 days later, the first fleet entered Earth's solar system. 500 warships, enough firepower to burn every city on the planet to ash. They expected the humans to see the fleet and beg for mercy. They expected surrender within hours. They did not understand what they were dealing with. They did not know that they had just made the worst mistake in the history of their empire. They had picked a fight with humanity, and humanity did not know how to quit. Admiral stood on the bridge of the Unbroken and watched the enemy fleet approach. 500 ships. Her screens showed them as red dots, spreading across the darkness like a disease. She had 62 ships under her command, 62 against 500. The commander sent a message. It was simple. "Surrender now and some of your people will live. Fight and we will kill everyone." Admiral did not bother to respond. She opened a channel to her fleet instead. "All ships, this is the Admiral. You know what we face. You know the odds. I will not lie to you and say we will all survive. Many of us will die today, but I promise you this. We will make them bleed. We will make them remember this day. And we will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten our home." She closed the channel and looked at her crew. They were young, most of them, young and scared, but they were also determined. Not one of them had asked to retreat. "Begin the attack," she said. The human fleet moved forward. They had never fought a species like humanity. In their 800 years of conquest, they had learned that war followed certain rules. When one side was clearly stronger, the weaker side surrendered. When casualties became too high, the losing side asked for peace. War was mathematics. You calculated your chances, and when the numbers turned against you, you stopped fighting. Humans did not follow these rules. The first wave of human ships hit the formation like a hammer. They did not try to stay at safe distances. They flew straight into the enemy fleet, weapons firing continuously. They destroyed ship after ship, but the humans kept coming. A destroyer called the took 7 direct hits in the first minute of battle. Its engines were damaged. Its weapons were failing. Any reasonable crew would have retreated or surrendered. Instead, the captain, a woman named Lee, ordered full speed ahead. The destroyer crashed into a cruiser and detonated its remaining ammunition. Both ships exploded together. The commanders were confused. This was not how war worked. You did not sacrifice ships for no tactical advantage. You did not throw away lives. But the humans kept doing it. Pilots whose ships were too damaged to fight would aim for the nearest enemy and accelerate. Crews would overload their reactors rather than be captured. They fought without any concern for their own survival. What they did not understand was that humans had been fighting wars for 10,000 years. They had studied violence the way other species studied science. Their military academies taught ancient strategies from warriors named Sun and Alexander and Napoleon. They had fought each other in 100,000 battles across their history. They had learned that sometimes the side that refuses to quit is the side that wins. The battle lasted 9 hours. Human ships fell one after another. The Aegis, commanded by Captain Park, fought until its hull was torn open and half its crew was dead. Park herself was injured badly, but she kept giving orders until her ship had destroyed 3 enemy vessels. But something strange was happening. They were losing ships too, many more than they had expected. Human weapons were not stronger. If anything, they were weaker. But human tactics were vicious and unpredictable. The computers could not calculate what the humans would do because the humans did not make logical decisions. They made desperate ones, insane ones, brave ones. A small fighter called the Iron Ghost flew directly into the launch bay of a carrier. Its pilot, a man named, survived the crash somehow. He climbed out of his ruined ship with a rifle in his hands and fought his way through the alien crew. He died on that carrier, but before he died, he reached the engine room and destroyed it. The carrier fell silent and drifted, dead in space. The soldiers who found his body stood staring at it for a long time. They could not understand what kind of creature would do such a thing. When the battle ended, the humans had lost 63 ships, more than half their fleet. They had lost 112. For the first time in 800 years, a fleet retreated. They pulled back to the edge of the solar system to repair their ships and plan their next attack. On the bridge of the damaged Unbroken, Admiral allowed herself a small smile. Blood ran down her face from a cut on her forehead. 3 of her bridge crew were dead. Her ship was barely holding together. But they had survived, more than survived. They had made the mighty Empire run away. She opened a channel to Earth. "This is Admiral, we have won the first battle. The enemy has retreated. Send everything you have. We need more ships, more weapons, more people. They will come back, and when they do, we need to be ready." On Earth, people watched the news in silence. They had seen the battle footage. They had watched their ships explode, their sons and daughters die in the cold darkness of space. And then they had watched the enemy retreat. Something changed in humanity that day. The fear did not disappear, but something stronger grew beside it. Pride, anger, determination. They had been told they could not win. They had won anyway. Now they wanted more. The morning after the battle, the factories opened early. Had run his manufacturing plant in New for 20 years. They made farming equipment, tractors and harvesters and parts for irrigation systems. Simple, peaceful work. That morning he gathered his workers in the main hall. There were 300 of them, men and women of all ages. They looked tired. Many had stayed up all night watching the battle, hoping their family members in the fleet would survive. "You all know what happened yesterday," said. "You know what is coming. The government has asked all industrial facilities to switch to military production. We have 72 hours to convert our assembly lines." A young woman raised her hand. "Sir, we make tractors. We do not know how to make weapons." "Then we will learn," said. "The engineers are sending blueprints right now. We will study them today, practice tomorrow, and begin production by the 3rd day. We will not sleep much. We will make mistakes, but we will figure it out because our people in space need us." He paused and looked at their faces. He saw fear there, but also something else. The same thing he felt in his own chest. "My nephew was on the," he continued. His voice caught for a moment. "He died when his ship crashed into that cruiser. He was 24 years old. I cannot fight beside him anymore. But I can build the weapons that will avenge him. That is what I plan to do. If you want to go home, I understand. No one will blame you, but if you want to fight, stay with me." No one left. Across Earth, the same scene repeated in thousands of places. Car factories started making armored vehicles. Electronics companies built targeting systems. Clothing manufacturers switched to producing military uniforms. The entire planet transformed itself in days. In Seoul, Dr. Shin worked in a research laboratory that had once studied alien biology for purely scientific purposes. Now she had a different mission. Pieces of technology were arriving from the battlefield, recovered from destroyed ships. Her job was to understand how they worked. She had not slept in 3 days. Empty coffee cups covered her desk. Her eyes were red and burning, but she could not stop. Every hour she worked might save thousands of lives. The most important piece was a fragment of an engine. Their ships used something called singularity drives, small artificial black holes that bent space and allowed faster than light travel. Human ships used fusion engines that were much slower. If they could understand the singularity drive, they could build faster ships, better ships. Shin and her team worked around the clock. They made mistakes. They had accidents. One researcher was badly injured when a power cell exploded, but they kept going. On the 18th day, Shin called the military command. "We did it," she said. She was so tired she could barely stand, but she was smiling. "We know how their engines work. We can build them, and I think we can make them better." Far away from Earth, on a cargo ship traveling between the planet and the lunar shipyards, a pilot named O was doing her own part. She flew supplies day and night: metal for building ships, food for the workers, ammunition for the fleet. It was boring work, dangerous too because scouts sometimes attacked supply ships, but did not complain. She knew she was helping. One night her communication system picked up a strange signal. It was weak and hidden in static, but her computer managed to decode it. The message was not in any human language. It was. But it was not coming from the. Trace the signal. It came from a planet 40 light-years away. According to her database, that planet was a labor world. Millions of enslaved aliens worked there in mines and factories. She played the message. Her translator struggled with the alien language, but eventually it produced words she could understand. To the species called humans, "We have watched your battle, we have seen you fight. We are slaves of the Empire. We have been slaves for 200 years. We were told that resistance was impossible, that they could not be defeated, but you defeated them. Please tell us how to resist." Sat in her pilot seat for a long time, staring at the message. She was not supposed to respond. She was just a cargo pilot. Diplomacy and military matters were above her rank. But she thought about her brother, who had died in the first battle. She thought about all the people working without sleep to build ships and weapons. She thought about what Earth was sacrificing to stay free. She opened a channel and recorded her response. "To the slaves of the Empire, my name is O. I am nobody important. I fly a cargo ship, but I can tell you what you want to know. You ask how we resist. The answer is simple. We decided that we would rather die than live without freedom. We decided that our lives meant nothing if we could not choose how to live them. And when we made that decision, we discovered something. We discovered that we are harder to kill than anyone expected, including ourselves." She paused, then added one more thing. "You can do the same, you just have to choose." She sent the message and continued her journey. She did not know if anyone would hear it. She did not know if it would make any difference. But somewhere on 100 different worlds, slaves were listening, and they were starting to hope. 6 months after first contact, the Empire sent everything they had. Every warship, every soldier, every weapon. 2,000 vessels darkened the space near Jupiter, their hulls blocking the distant light of the sun. The Supreme Commander of the forces sent one final message to Earth. "You have fought well for primitives, you have surprised us, but now it ends. We bring our full strength. Nothing you have can stop this fleet. Surrender and we will make your deaths quick. Fight and we will burn your world until nothing remains but ash and memory." On Earth, in a bunker deep beneath the mountains of Korea, Supreme Commander studied the enemy formation on his screens. He was 58 years old, a quiet man who rarely showed emotion. He had been a soldier his entire life. He had fought in colonial conflicts, commanded peacekeeping missions, trained generations of officers. Now he faced the most important battle in human history. Earth's fleet had grown. 6 months of non-stop production had created new ships. The singularity drives that Dr. Shin had reverse-engineered made them faster. New weapons made them deadlier. 400 vessels waited near Jupiter, along with orbital platforms, asteroid fortifications, and millions of small drones. It was not enough. The numbers still favored the 5-1. But had a plan. Admiral commanded the main fleet from the Unbroken. The ship had been rebuilt and upgraded. It was almost unrecognizable from the vessel that had fought 6 months ago. Herself had changed too. The wound on her forehead had healed, but she had not slept a full night since the first battle. She lived on coffee and determination. "All ships," she announced. "The enemy comes. You know what to do. We hold this line. We do not retreat. We do not surrender for Earth, for humanity, for everyone who cannot fight beside us today." The battle began. They attacked in waves, trying to overwhelm the human defenses with sheer numbers. Human ships met them with coordinated fire. Drones swarmed enemy formations. Orbital platforms launched missiles in endless streams. A teenager named Han had designed those drones. Before the war, she had been a student who made small robots for competitions. When the invasion came, she had volunteered her skills. The military had been skeptical at first. She was 17 years old. What could a child contribute? But her designs were brilliant. Her drones were cheap, fast, and deadly. They flew in patterns that confused enemy targeting systems. They sacrificed themselves by the thousands to bring down warships. Han watched the battle from Earth, tracking her creations on a screen. Each time one was destroyed, she felt a small pain in her heart. She had built them with her own hands. They were like children to her. But she kept working. Every drone destroyed was replaced by 2 more from the factories. The battle raged for hours. Ships exploded on both sides. The darkness of space filled with fire and debris. The pushed forward and the humans pushed back. Neither side would yield. Then something changed. A troop transport suddenly broke formation. It was heading toward the human lines, but it was not attacking. Its weapons were silent. An emergency signal was broadcasting from its hull. Admiral watched the ship approach with suspicion. What are they doing? The answer came through the communication system. The voice was alien, but the translator made the words clear. "Human fleet, do not fire. We are not, we were slaves. We have taken this ship from our masters. We wish to surrender to you. We wish to join you." More ships broke away. 10, 20, 50. Troop transports and supply vessels crewed by enslaved species turning against their masters. The fleet fell into chaos. Commanders shouted orders. Some ships fired on the rebels. Others tried to retreat. The perfect formation collapsed into confusion. Saw the opportunity. "Admiral, attack now. Hit their command ships, end this." The human fleet surged forward. The final hours of the battle were brutal. They fought with desperate fury, but they were caught between enemies. Humans ahead, rebels behind. Their command structure shattered when Admiral personally led an assault on their flagship. The Unbroken took terrible damage in that attack. A direct hit killed half the bridge crew. Admiral was thrown against a wall, her ribs broken, her vision blurred with blood. But she stayed conscious. She stayed in command. "Target the flagship bridge," she ordered. Her voice was weak but steady. "All weapons, fire." The flagship exploded. With their command ship gone, the remaining forces broke. Some tried to escape. Others surrendered. The slaves they had brought as soldiers refused to fight anymore. The battle was over. Admiral died 3 hours later, surrounded by her surviving crew. Her last words were simple. "Tell them we won. Tell them to keep fighting until it is truly finished." On Earth, when the news arrived, people wept. They wept for the dead. They wept for the living. They wept because they had survived something that should have been impossible. And on 100 enslaved worlds, where they had ruled for centuries, beings of a dozen different species heard what had happened. They heard that a primitive species had defeated the empire. They heard that humans had helped their fellow slaves turn against their masters. They heard and they began to rise. The rebellion had begun. 1 year after the first arrived in Earth's solar system, Their empire was dying. The rebellion had spread faster than anyone expected. 12 worlds rose up in the first week. 80 more followed within a month. Species that had been slaves for centuries remembered how to fight. They remembered how to hope. They tried to stop it. They sent their remaining fleets to crush the rebellions. But their fleets were smaller now, weakened by the losses at Jupiter. And every time they attacked one world, 3 more revolted behind them. Their economy collapsed. The empire had been built on slave labor. Without the slaves, the factories stopped. The mines closed. The ships could not be repaired. In the end, the leaders of the had only one choice left. A single diplomatic vessel approached Earth's solar system, flying under a white flag. The humans had taught them this symbol. It meant peace. It meant surrender. Ambassador waited aboard the new space station called Horizon's Dawn. He looked older than he had a year ago. His hair was completely white now, and deep lines marked his face. He had not slept well since the war began. The weight of billions of lives had pressed down on his shoulders. But he was still alive, and today he would finish what he had started. The representative entered the meeting room. It was the same creature that had visited 1 year ago, the one with shifting scales and 4 arms, but it looked different now, smaller somehow. Its colors were dull and faded. It did not speak with arrogance anymore. "Ambassador," it said, "we have come to discuss terms." Nodded politely, "Please sit." The folded its long body into a chair designed for human use. It looked uncomfortable and ridiculous. A year ago, it would have demanded proper furniture. Now it said nothing. "Before we begin," said, "I want to tell you something. 1 year ago when you came to this station, you offered us terms. Do you remember what they were?" There was silence for a moment. "I remember. You told us to surrender. You told us to give up our ships and our weapons. You told us our people would become slaves. You said if we refused, you would destroy our planet." "I remember," the repeated. Reached into his coat and pulled out a single sheet of paper. He placed it on the table between them. "These are our terms," he said. "Please read them." They picked up the paper. Its 4 hands trembled slightly. It read the words, then read them again. "This is the same," it said. "You have given us the same terms we offered you." Smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not kind either. "I thought it would be fitting. Unconditional surrender. The dissolution of your empire. The liberation of every species you have enslaved. Trials for those who committed crimes against the conquered peoples." They set the paper down. "And if we refuse? Then we continue fighting. Our fleets grow stronger every day. Your empire grows weaker. The rebellions grow larger. In 6 months you will have nothing left. In a year your species will be scattered across the galaxy, homeless and defeated. These terms give you a chance to preserve something. Refuse and you lose everything." The room was quiet. Outside the windows, stars burned in the endless darkness. Ships moved in the distance, human vessels and rebel vessels, working together to build something new. They reached for a writing tool. It signed the document. "It is done," it said. Its voice was empty of emotion. "The empire surrenders." Took the document and examined the signature. He folded it carefully and placed it in his coat. "I will be honest with you," he said. "I did not expect this day to come. When you first arrived, I thought we would all die. I thought Earth would burn. I prepared myself to watch my world destroyed." They looked at him. "Why did you refuse our offer? You knew you could not win." "Because surrender was never an option for us," said. "We are a stubborn species. We would rather die fighting than live as slaves. That is simply who we are." 2 months later, Captain Park stood on the bridge of her new ship, the Admiral. It was named in honor of the woman who had given her life at Jupiter. Park had been promoted to Fleet Admiral now. She commanded the 1st Expeditionary Force, a fleet of 100 ships traveling to help the liberated worlds rebuild. Her crew was not all human. Officers worked alongside humans. So did members of other freed species. They were learning to trust each other. It would take time, but they were trying. Park addressed her crew before they departed. 1 year ago, the galaxy believed we were weak. They thought we were primitive and frightened. They thought we would fall easily. They were wrong. She paused, looking at the faces of her crew. Human and alien alike, they watched her with respect. We won because we refused to accept defeat. We won because we would rather die than surrender. We won because we believe that every being deserves freedom, and we were willing to fight for that belief. She turned to where the stars waited. The Empire is gone, but our work is not finished. There are worlds that need help rebuilding. There are species that need to learn how to be free again. And there are other empires out there watching us, wondering what we will do next. She straightened her uniform and gave her final order. Let them wonder, let them watch, and let them remember what happened when someone picked a fight with humanity. We did not just survive, we won. The fleet moved forward into the stars. The galaxy had changed forever. And humanity was just getting started.